Bullies pick on the wrong new black girl, not knowing she's a brutal fighter. The first time Aaliyah stepped into Riverside High, she felt the familiar weight of being the new girl. She had been through this routine before: new city, new school, new faces staring at her like she was an outsider. But this time, she wasn't going to let anyone push her around. Aaliyah had grown up in the tough streets of Chicago, raised by her uncle, a former MMA fighter. He had trained her since she was 10, turning her into a disciplined, skilled fighter. She never went looking for trouble, but trouble always had a way of finding her. And when it did, she made sure it never found her again. Her first few days at Riverside were quiet. She sat in the back of the classroom, kept to herself, and stayed off everyone's radar. But some people couldn't leave well enough alone. Kara, the so-called queen of the school, had a habit of sizing up new students, especially ones she thought were weak. She and her clique of followers, Tiffany, Grace, and Jenna, had made it their mission to remind Aaliyah of her place. They started small, whispering when she walked by, laughing behind her back, bumping into her in the hallways. One day in the cafeteria, Kara decided to take it up a notch. Aaliyah had just gotten her lunch when she felt a hard shove from behind. Her tray went flying, food splattering onto the floor. The entire cafeteria went silent as Kara and her girls burst into laughter. "Oh no, did the new girl drop her lunch?" Kara mocked, tilting her head with a fake pout. "You should watch where you're going." Aaliyah took a deep breath, wiping off the mashed potatoes from her hoodie. She wasn't one to make a scene, but she wasn't about to let this slide either. "Pick it up," Aaliyah said, her voice calm but firm. Kara scoffed. "Excuse me. I said pick it up." The cafeteria was dead silent now. No one had ever talked back to Kara like that. "Oh, you must be crazy," Kara sneered. "Do you even know who I am?" Aaliyah sighed. "Just another loudmouth who thinks she's tough." That was enough to send Kara over the edge. "Hold my bag," she told Jenna before stepping toward Aaliyah. "You must not know how things work around here." Before she could finish her sentence, she reached out to shove Aaliyah again. That was her first mistake. Aaliyah's hands moved like lightning, grabbing Kara's wrist and twisting it just enough to make her yelp in pain. In one swift motion, she swept her foot, knocking Kara off balance and sending her crashing onto the floor. Gasps and shocked whispers filled the cafeteria. Tiffany and Grace moved toward Aaliyah, but she was ready. With a precise front kick, she sent Tiffany stumbling back into a table. Grace hesitated, suddenly realizing that this wasn't a fight she could win. Jenna helped Kara up, but the girl was seething. "You're dead, you hear me?" She spat, rubbing her wrist. Aaliyah simply tilted her head. "Then come at me again." Kara's eyes darted around. The entire cafeteria was watching. Even the teachers hadn't stepped in yet, shocked by how quickly the tables had turned. She wasn't used to being embarrassed like this. And she sure wasn't used to losing. But she wasn't stupid. "This isn't over," Kara hissed before storming out with her clique. Aaliyah exhaled, shaking off the tension as she picked up her tray. The crowd slowly started buzzing again, people whispering about what had just happened. From that day on, no one dared to mess with Aaliyah again. The bullies had picked the wrong new girl, one who knew how to fight back. And she wasn't afraid to remind them. Kara didn't forget. After that humiliating scene in the cafeteria, she spent the rest of the day fuming. Her reputation had taken a major hit, and the last thing she could afford was looking weak. If she let this slide, people would start questioning her power at Riverside High. That was unacceptable. So she came up with a plan. The setup. Aaliyah felt the shift almost immediately. The whispers had changed. Before, students had talked about her being the new girl. Now they spoke about her being the one who took down Kara. Some admired her, others were scared. Even the teachers seemed to keep an eye on her, as if expecting her to cause more trouble. But Aaliyah wasn't interested in proving anything to anyone. She just wanted to make it through the school year without more drama. Unfortunately, Kara had other plans. A week after the cafeteria incident, Aaliyah found a note in her locker. "Meet me behind the gym after school. Let's finish this. Kara." Aaliyah stared at it for a moment before crumpling it up. She had no interest in playing high school games. If Kara wanted revenge, she could keep waiting. Aaliyah wasn't some reckless street fighter looking for trouble. But then she heard something that changed her mind. During last period, she caught a glimpse of Kara and her clique in the hallway. "She'll come," Kara was saying. "And when she does, we'll make sure she doesn't walk away from it." Aaliyah's jaw tightened. So this wasn't just a one-on-one fight. It was a setup. Fine. If Kara wanted war, she was about to get one. The fight. After school, Aaliyah made her way to the back of the gym. The area was secluded, hidden from teachers and security cameras. Perfect for a fight. Kara was already there, leaning against the wall with her arms crossed. But she wasn't alone. Tiffany, Grace, Jenna, and two other guys Aaliyah didn't recognize stood beside her. They looked like upperclassmen, football players built and ready to throw down. So it was 5 against 1. Aaliyah smirked. "Wow," she said, rolling her shoulders. "Didn't know you needed backup, Kara." Kara scoffed. "I don't. But I'm not stupid enough to fight you alone." Aaliyah exhaled slowly. She had hoped Kara would get over it, but clearly she was desperate to regain her pride. "You sure about this?" Aaliyah asked. Kara grinned. "Oh, I'm sure." She gave a signal. Jenna and Grace rushed forward first. Aaliyah moved instantly. Jenna swung a wild punch. Aaliyah sidestepped, grabbed her arm, and flipped her over onto the concrete. Before Grace could react, Aaliyah drove her elbow into her ribs, knocking the wind out of her. 2 down. Tiffany hesitated but ran at Aaliyah anyway. Aaliyah ducked under her attack, and swept her leg out from under her. Tiffany hit the ground hard, groaning in pain. 3 down. That's when the two guys stepped in. One of them, a tall guy with broad shoulders, charged at her, swinging his fist. Aaliyah blocked it with her forearm, and countered with a precise jab to his jaw. He staggered back, stunned. The second guy lunged. Aaliyah dropped low, dodging his punch, and delivered a powerful kick to his stomach. He doubled over, gasping. 4 and 5 down. Kara's face was pale now. "You?" she stammered, stepping back. Aaliyah wiped a bit of sweat from her forehead. "Still want to do this?" Kara clenched her fists, but her confidence was gone. She glanced at her friends groaning on the ground, then back at Aaliyah. For the first time, she realized she had messed with the wrong person. Aaliyah sighed. She had no interest in finishing off a scared girl. She turned to leave. That's when Kara did the dumbest thing she could have done. She grabbed a metal pipe from the ground and swung it at Aaliyah's head. But Aaliyah had seen it coming. She ducked, caught Kara's wrist mid-swing, and twisted it behind her back. Kara screamed in pain, the pipe clattering to the ground. Aaliyah leaned in close. "This is your last warning," she said, her voice calm but cold. "Stay away from me. If you ever try this again, I won't be so nice." Kara whimpered. "Oh, okay. Aaliyah let her go. Kara collapsed onto the ground, clutching her wrist. The rest of her group lay scattered around, groaning and too hurt to move. Aaliyah took one last look at them before walking away. The message had been sent. And from that day on, no one, absolutely no one, ever messed with Aaliyah again. Aaliyah thought it was over. She had sent a clear message to Kara and her crew: she wasn't someone to mess with. After that fight behind the gym, Kara had kept her distance. The whispers in the hallways had changed. People no longer just called her the new girl. Now they called her the fighter. Some students respected her. Others feared her. But there was one thing Aaliyah knew for sure: the quiet never lasted long. A week later, she found herself face to face with a new problem. The principal's office. Aaliyah was in math class when she heard the announcement over the intercom. Aaliyah Carter, please report to the principal's office immediately. A few students turned to look at her, whispering. Even the teacher raised an eyebrow. Aaliyah sighed. She knew this was coming. She grabbed her bag and made her way to the office. When she walked in, she wasn't surprised to see Kara sitting there, her wrist wrapped in a bandage. But what did surprise her was the older man standing next to her. He was tall, built like a professional athlete, with sharp eyes that locked onto Aaliyah the moment she stepped inside. Principal Reynolds cleared his throat. Aaliyah, have a seat. Aaliyah sat down, her face calm. She had been in situations like this before. Kara smirked, but it wasn't the same arrogant grin she usually wore. There was something nervous behind it. This is Mr. Holt, the principal said, nodding toward the man beside Kara. He's one of the coaches here at Riverside. He also oversees the regional boxing league. Aaliyah raised an eyebrow. Okay. Mr. Holt studied her. I heard what happened behind the gym last week. Aaliyah glanced at Kara, then back at him. And? He leaned forward. You dropped 5 people in less than a minute. That takes skill. Aaliyah shrugged. I defended myself. Defended yourself? Mr. Holt chuckled. You did more than that. I've seen trained fighters struggle to do what you did. Principal Reynolds folded his hands. Aaliyah, I should suspend you for fighting. But Mr. Holt made an interesting proposal. Aaliyah glanced at the coach. What kind of proposal? Mr. Holt smiled. I want you to join the Riverside boxing team. Aaliyah blinked. That was unexpected. You've got raw talent, Holt continued. I don't know where you learned to fight, but you've got real potential. Instead of using it to settle schoolyard fights, why not put it to good use? Aaliyah was quiet for a moment. She had spent years training with her uncle, but she had never fought on an actual team. She had never even considered it. Kara scoffed. So she beats up my friends and she gets a reward for it. Mr. Holt turned to her. No, she gets an opportunity. And if you want to step in the ring, Kara, you're welcome to try out too. Kara's face turned red. I know I don't want to. Then stop complaining. Holt turned back to Aaliyah. What do you say? Aaliyah hesitated. She didn't like being told what to do. But something about the offer intrigued her. She crossed her arms. What's the catch? No catch, Holt said. Try it out. If you don't like it, walk away. Aaliyah thought for a moment. She had spent her whole life training, but for what? Maybe this was a chance to put her skills to the test. Finally, she nodded. I'll try it. Mr. Holt grinned. Good. Practice starts tomorrow. The first day of training. The next afternoon, Aaliyah walked into the Riverside gym. The smell of sweat and leather filled the air. Heavy bags hung from the ceiling, punching mitts lay scattered across the floor, and the sound of gloves hitting pads echoed through the space. She spotted Mr. Holt talking to a few students. Most of them were older, built like serious fighters. He noticed her and waved her over. All right, team, he said, this is Aaliyah Carter. She's new, but trust me, she's not here to play around. A few of the boxers sized her up. One of them, a tall guy with a buzz cut, smirked. She looks kinda small. Aaliyah raised an eyebrow. You wanna find out if that matters? The gym erupted in laughter. Buzz Cut's grin faded. Holt chuckled. Relax, Jake. You'll get your turn. He turned back to Aaliyah. You're gonna spar today. Nothing too crazy, just to see what you can do. Aaliyah nodded. Who's my opponent? Holt smiled. Me. A few boxers murmured in surprise. It wasn't every day the coach stepped into the ring with a newcomer. Aaliyah smirked. All right. The test. The boxing ring was surrounded by students, all watching closely as Aaliyah and Holt stepped in. He pulled on a pair of gloves. Let's keep it light. Show me what you've got. Aaliyah nodded and got into her stance. The second Holt moved, she could tell he was experienced. He didn't rush in, he circled, watching her movements. She waited, patient. Then he threw a quick jab. Aaliyah dodged, her reflexes sharp. He threw another, she slipped under it, countering with a fast right hook. Holt blocked but nodded approvingly. Nice. Then he stepped up the pace. He feinted, then sent a rapid combination of punches her way. Aaliyah dodged the first, blocked the second and parried the third. She saw an opening and sent a jab straight to his ribs. Holt grunted, stepping back. The watching boxers gasped. Aaliyah smirked. Still keeping it light. Holt chuckled. All right, I see how it is. He came in faster this time, testing her defense. Aaliyah reacted instinctively, blocking, dodging and countering when she could. The students watched in shock. This wasn't a normal rookie. Finally, Holt stepped back and raised a hand. All right, that's enough. Aaliyah lowered her gloves. Holt grinned. You're in. The gym erupted in cheers. Some of the boxers nodded in respect. Even buzz cut, Jake, looked impressed. Aaliyah stepped out of the ring, wiping sweat from her forehead. She had come to this school expecting trouble. Instead, she had found something else. A challenge. And she was ready for it. The days flew by after Aaliyah officially joined the Riverside boxing team. Every afternoon, she showed up at the gym, eager to prove herself. The training was intense, long hours of sparring, drills and strength conditioning. But Aaliyah was a natural, and it was clear from the first week that she wasn't like any other fighter on the team. Mr. Holt worked with her one-on-one, pushing her harder than he pushed anyone else. He was impressed by her technique, but more so by her mindset. She was calm under pressure, thinking several steps ahead of her opponents, always anticipating their next move. However, the gym wasn't just a place of training, it became a battleground of sorts. Though Aaliyah had earned the respect of most of the team, there were still some who thought she didn't belong. Jake, the tall guy with the buzz cut, had been watching her with a mix of intrigue and disdain since their first encounter. He didn't like that she was getting attention, especially from Mr. Holt. Jake was used to being the star, the strongest on the team, the one everyone looked to for guidance. He couldn't stand the idea of someone new, someone untested, overshadowing him. The challenge. One day, Aaliyah was finishing up her workout when Jake approached her, a smug grin on his face. You've been here for a few weeks now, he said, leaning against a punching bag. Think you're ready to take me on in a real sparring match? Aaliyah didn't even look at him, continuing to wrap her hands for the next round of practice. You want to spar with me? Go ahead, but you might not like the outcome. Jake snorted, pushing off the bag and stepping closer. I'll be the judge of that. I've seen your tricks, but let's see if you can handle someone who's actually experienced. Aaliyah stopped wrapping her hands, looked him in the eye and smiled. All right, Jake. You asked for it. He grinned, his teeth flashing. We'll see if you still have that same attitude after I knock you out. Aaliyah's heart rate didn't change. She'd been through worse, real fights, street battles, and this was just another sparring match in her mind. The sparring match. The gym was packed as word spread that Aaliyah and Jake were about to spar. Everyone knew Jake was tough, but there was a sense of anticipation in the air. People were curious to see if Aaliyah was really as good as she seemed, or if she was just a flash in the pan. Mr. Holt stood by the ring, arms crossed, watching closely. He'd seen this kind of thing before. Jake's arrogance was legendary, and it was always interesting to see how newcomers dealt with it. Aaliyah stepped into the ring first, rolling her shoulders and warming up. Jake followed, bouncing on the balls of his feet, his eyes locked on her with a predatory gleam. Ready? Holt called from the side of the ring. Aaliyah nodded, taking her stance. She was calm, no nerves, no hesitation. Jake's face twisted into a smirk. Let's see if you can dodge this. He lunged at her with a wild right hook. Aaliyah was ready. She stepped back, dodging his punch effortlessly, then countered with a quick jab to his ribs. Jake grunted, but he quickly recovered, throwing a series of punches in rapid succession. Aaliyah blocked each one with precision, her hands moving like fluid, calculated defense. She slipped under another wild punch and landed a sharp uppercut to his chin. The impact sent Jake reeling back, his expression flickering with surprise. "Not bad," he grunted, wiping his mouth. But the more Jake fought, the more frustrated he became. His moves grew sloppier, more reckless. Aaliyah, on the other hand, remained steady, responding to his every move with the kind of discipline she'd learned from years of training with her uncle. She was in the zone, moving like a force of nature, calm, calculating, and precise. Jake was beginning to realize this wasn't going to be an easy win. The turning point. Jake charged again, this time throwing a powerful left hook aimed at Aaliyah's head. It was fast and it was hard, but Aaliyah was already anticipating it. She ducked, pivoting to the side, and with a swift motion, she brought her elbow up into his ribs, forcing him to stumble. Before he could recover, Aaliyah dropped low and swept his legs out from under him, sending him crashing to the mat. The gym went silent. Jake lay there, winded and dazed. He pushed himself up slowly, his face red with frustration. Aaliyah stood over him, offering him a hand. "Want to keep going?" Jake glared at her but refused to take her hand. Instead, he pulled himself to his feet, clearly pissed off but unwilling to admit defeat. "That's enough," Mr. Holt called out, stepping into the ring. "Jake, you've lost." Jake looked at his coach, his face contorted with anger. "I didn't lose. I just wasn't ready." Holt shook his head. "No, Jake. You weren't ready for someone like Aaliyah. She beat you fair and square." Jake clenched his fists but didn't argue. He knew Holt was right. He had underestimated her, and now everyone else in the gym had seen what she was capable of. The aftermath. The next few days at Riverside were quieter. Aaliyah had earned the respect of the entire boxing team. Jake avoided her, but not because he was scared, more because his pride had taken a significant blow. He would never admit it, but deep down he knew she was a better fighter. Other students started taking notice too. Aaliyah became a kind of silent leader among the boxers, someone who didn't need to boast or flaunt her skills. She let her fighting speak for itself. But there was still something nagging at her. She hadn't forgotten the tension between her and Kara. Although Kara had backed off after the fight behind the gym, there was still a lingering animosity. Aaliyah had heard rumors that Kara was trying to find a way to get back at her. Aaliyah wasn't worried. She knew she could handle Kara if the need arose. But it was clear that Riverside High wasn't done with her yet. She had made her mark, but the bigger battles were still ahead. The gym at Riverside High had become a second home for Aaliyah. Every day after school, she threw herself into training, eager to improve. With Mr. Holt pushing her to new limits, Aaliyah felt stronger than ever, more focused. The word had spread through the school that she was not someone to be trifled with. Most students, especially those who had heard the rumors or witnessed her sparring with Jake, steered clear of her. But there were still some who couldn't let it go, people who wanted to test her, to see if the stories were true. Aaliyah hadn't had a fight in weeks, but the tension in the air at school was palpable. Some of the girls from Kara's group still glared at her when they saw her in the halls. Kara, for her part, had become more reclusive, though there was an edge to her that suggested she wasn't done with Aaliyah just yet. It was a Friday afternoon when Aaliyah's suspicions were confirmed. The challenge. It was after school, and Aaliyah was packing up her things in the locker room when she heard the sound of footsteps approaching. She turned to see Kara, flanked by two of her friends, Tiffany and Grace, standing in the doorway, their expressions cold. Aaliyah raised an eyebrow but didn't move. She was used to this by now. "So," Kara began, her voice tight, "you think you can just come to Riverside and do whatever you want?" Aaliyah didn't respond right away, choosing instead to calmly tie her shoes, her back to them. "I'm not here to do anything except finish school. If you've got a problem with me, you should have let it go by now." Tiffany snickered. Yeah, right. Let it go? After everything you've done to Kara. Aaliyah stood up, turning to face them. If Kara's upset because I defended myself, then that's her problem, not mine. Kara's eyes flashed with anger. You humiliated me in front of everyone. And now you're walking around like you own this place. Aaliyah folded her arms, her gaze steady. Kara, I don't care about your drama. If you want to keep holding onto your grudge, that's your choice. But don't expect me to apologize for something I had to do. There was a tense silence, the weight of their gazes on her. Then Kara spoke, her voice lower, more dangerous. You think you can beat me in front of all these people again? I won't let you walk away from this a second time. Aaliyah's eyes narrowed. What do you want, Kara? Another fight? Is that it? Kara nodded. I'm giving you one last chance. Tomorrow at the field after school, you and me. One-on-one. Let's see if you're really as tough as they say. Tiffany and Grace stepped forward, clearly backing Kara up. Aaliyah glanced at the three girls and then back at Kara, her mind racing. Fine, she said, her voice calm. I'll be there. With that, Kara and her friends turned and left the locker room, leaving Aaliyah alone with her thoughts. She had expected this. Kara wasn't the type to back down easily. But what bothered Aaliyah more than anything was the feeling that this wasn't just about revenge. Kara wanted to prove something. Aaliyah wasn't sure what Kara had planned, but she knew she couldn't underestimate her. Kara had something to prove, and in situations like this, people would do anything to restore their pride. The fight. The next day, Aaliyah arrived at the field after school, her heart beating evenly in her chest. The sun was beginning to set, casting long shadows over the grassy area where Kara and her group were already waiting. A crowd had gathered. Students from all over the school had heard the challenge and showed up to watch. Aaliyah saw Jake standing near the crowd, watching her intently. He'd probably heard about the fight and wanted to see if she could back up all the talk. She ignored him, focusing only on Kara, who stood in the center, her fists clenched at her sides. Kara smirked when she saw Aaliyah approaching. I was beginning to think you wouldn't show up. Are you scared? Aaliyah didn't respond. She just took her place in the middle of the field, her posture calm but alert. The crowd murmured, sensing the tension in the air. Are we going to fight or are you just going to keep talking? Aaliyah asked, her voice cool. Kara stepped forward, throwing the first punch. It was fast, fueled by anger, but Aaliyah anticipated it. She leaned back just in time to avoid the blow, feeling the air whoosh past her face. Kara swung again, this time a left hook aimed at Aaliyah's head. But Aaliyah ducked and pivoted, catching Kara's arm and twisting it behind her back. Kara winced, but she was no amateur. With a quick shift, she elbowed Aaliyah in the ribs, forcing her to release her grip. They circled each other, neither willing to back down. Kara lunged again, more desperate this time. Aaliyah dodged and stepped back, letting Kara rush forward. When Kara tried to turn and strike again, Aaliyah saw her chance. She moved with lightning speed, spinning low and sweeping Kara's legs out from under her. Kara hit the ground hard, her breath knocked out of her. The crowd gasped, murmuring among themselves. Aaliyah didn't move to attack further. She stood over Kara, waiting for her to recover. Kara pushed herself up, panting and furious. You're lucky that didn't land. Aaliyah didn't answer. She was focused on Kara, her body poised to react at any moment. Kara came at her again, throwing wild punches this time. She was reckless, angry and off balance. Aaliyah blocked the first punch and countered with a swift kick to Kara's midsection, knocking the wind out of her. Kara stumbled back, barely keeping her footing. She was out of breath now, her face flushed with exertion. You're done, Kara, Aaliyah said, her voice firm. But Kara wasn't finished. In one final desperate move, she threw a wild haymaker, aiming to land a blow to Aaliyah's face. Aaliyah saw it coming and stepped back just in time. She grabbed Kara's arm, twisted it, and sent her to the ground with one last powerful push. The crowd went silent, and for a moment there was only the sound of Kara breathing heavily on the grass. Aaliyah stood over her, watching as Kara lay there, defeated and gasping for air. "You should have let it go," Aaliyah said quietly, then turned and walked away, leaving the stunned crowd behind. The aftermath. The next few days at school were a mixture of whispers and newfound respect. Kara, once the queen bee of the school, had been publicly defeated. And Aaliyah? She had proven herself once again, not only as a fighter but as someone who could handle any challenge thrown her way. But the whispers didn't stop. People weren't just talking about the fight, they were talking about Aaliyah herself. Her name had become synonymous with strength, and not just physical strength, but the kind of strength that comes from knowing exactly who you are. Even Jake had started to look at her differently. The once dismissive fighter now saw her as someone to be respected. There were even rumors of other schools reaching out to Mr. Holt, asking about Aaliyah's potential for the regional boxing tournament. It wasn't over yet. There were still bigger challenges ahead. But for now, Aaliyah was content. She'd earned her place, and no one would take it from her. The following Monday morning, the energy at Riverside High had changed. Aaliyah walked through the halls like she always did, head up, shoulders square, silent confidence in every step. But now, people stepped aside for her. Not out of fear, but out of a newfound respect. Some nodded. Some whispered. A few smiled shyly. Even teachers gave her a second glance. Kara hadn't returned to school yet. Rumor had it she was recovering, which was a fancy way of saying she was embarrassed. Her dominance over the social scene had ended with that fight in the field, and everyone knew it. Aaliyah hadn't come to Riverside to make enemies or to become famous. But she had made it clear, if you came at her, you'd better come correct. Still, peace didn't last long at Riverside. New faces, old threats. In the gym, Mr. Holt pulled Aaliyah aside after a session. He looked serious. "You've been getting attention lately. Not just here, outside Riverside." Aaliyah blinked. "What do you mean?" "I mean other schools. Coaches. Scouts." He paused. "There's a local underground fighting league. Kids from different schools. Unofficial. Illegal technically but popular. Very popular." Aaliyah frowned. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because someone entered your name," he said. "They want you in the next match." She raised a brow. "I didn't enter anything." "I know. But someone did." Mr. Holt handed her a flyer. The location was coded, coordinates, not an address. The date was Friday. Just 4 days away. "There's more," he said. "Your opponent? His no student. Name's Marcus. 18. Senior from Eastlake. And has been undefeated for 2 years." Aaliyah stared at the flyer. Someone was setting her up. She wasn't scared, but she wasn't naive either. This wasn't schoolyard drama. This was organized, violent and real. Training for war. That week, training intensified. Mr. Holt worked her twice as hard, footwork drills, speed bags, blindfolded sparring. "Marcus is fast. You'll need to be faster," he said. At home, Aaliyah's uncle, who had once trained semi-pro fighters, noticed the change in her. One night over dinner he asked, "You're training harder than usual. Something on your mind?" Aaliyah hesitated. "There's a fight. Friday. Not official. One of those unsanctioned things." He set down his fork. "You sure you want to do this?" "I didn't choose it. But I'm not running from it either." Her uncle nodded slowly. "Then I'm in your corner. But you need to understand, this ain't high school anymore. These boys? They don't play fair." Aaliyah met his eyes. "Neither do I." Fight night. The location was a dimly lit warehouse on the edge of the industrial district. Inside, a makeshift ring was set up, ropes tied around concrete pillars, barely padded mats on the floor. Crowds of students and locals gathered around, placing bets and recording on their phones. Aaliyah stepped into the ring wearing a black hoodie, braided hair pulled back, fists taped tight. Her face was unreadable. Across from her, Marcus stood 6'1", broad-shouldered, with a scar across his eyebrow and arms full of tattoos. He was laughing with his crew, 3 boys from Eastlake, all muscle and attitude. "She's just a girl," Marcus scoffed. "This won't take 5 minutes." Aaliyah didn't flinch. She pulled her hoodie off and bounced lightly on her feet, eyes locked on him. Mr. Holt stood outside the ropes. Her uncle stood beside him, arms folded, silent but proud. The bell rang. Round 1, the wake-up call. Marcus charged like a bull, reckless, aggressive, trying to end it early. He threw a heavy hook. Aaliyah ducked. Another. She slipped past, dancing on her toes like a shadow. Then she struck, quick jab to the jaw, 2 to the ribs, stepped back before he could react. The crowd gasped. Marcus blinked, surprised. He hadn't expected her to be that fast. "You're gonna regret that," he growled. He came again, wilder this time. Aaliyah weaved under his punches, then struck low, digging into his side. Round 1 ended with Marcus breathing harder than expected. Aaliyah? Barely sweating. Round 2, the fire awakens. This time Marcus played smarter. He cut off her footwork, trapped her near the ropes. Landed a hard body shot that made her grunt. But Aaliyah didn't retreat. She stood her ground, tightened her guard and countered. Left jab. Right hook. Uppercut. The crowd roared. Blood ran from Marcus's nose. He wiped it, snarled and spat on the mat. "You'll pay for that." Aaliyah smirked. "Then come collect." Final round, Queen of the Ring. Marcus was desperate now. He went for a takedown, trying to overpower her with sheer size. But Aaliyah twisted, slammed her elbow into his shoulder, and flipped him over her hip. The warehouse went wild. Marcus got up slower this time, shaking his head like he was trying to stay conscious. Aaliyah saw her opening. She faked left, went right, and drove her fist straight into his jaw. Marcus stumbled. Another punch. Then another. He collapsed to the mat. The ref counted. 10. The place erupted in cheers. Aaliyah stood in the center of the ring, arms raised, breathing steady. Marcus's crew dragged him away, silent. Mr. Holt and her uncle entered the ring. Her uncle hugged her tightly. "You're a champion now, baby girl," he whispered. "Not just in the ring but in life." Back to school. The next Monday there was no more whispering. There were no bullies, no challengers, no skeptics. There was only Aaliyah, strong, respected, and untouchable. But she knew her journey was far from over. New fighters would rise. Bigger tournaments would call. And out there somewhere were opponents even tougher than Marcus. But she was ready. She wasn't just the new girl anymore. She was the fighter. It had been 3 weeks since Aaliyah's victory over Marcus at the underground fight. Her name had begun circulating in more than just local high schools. A few clips of her takedown had even gone viral online, reposted by street fight accounts and fight club junkies. But the spotlight, Aaliyah soon learned, came with new dangers. One afternoon, after a long sparring session with Mr. Holt, he handed her a folded envelope. "Someone dropped this off at the gym for you," he said, eyes narrowed with concern. Aaliyah took it. The paper was thick, expensive. No name on the outside. Inside, a single sentence was printed in clean block letters. "You're not the only one who knows how to fight. Watch your back." No name. No signature. Aaliyah's jaw clenched. She showed it to her uncle that night, who read it twice before folding it up slowly. "You've made someone nervous," he said. "Or angry." "Let them come," Aaliyah replied, her voice low. "I'm ready." But even she knew this wasn't just some school bully. This was something bigger. The Phantom Ring. By the end of that week, Aaliyah started hearing whispers about a group called the Phantom Ring, a secretive underground fight syndicate made up of top fighters from across the state. Not just high schoolers, dropouts, ex-amateurs, street brawlers. Organized, brutal and untraceable. One name kept coming up, Nova. Nova was rumored to be the reigning champ of the Phantom Ring. No video footage of her existed. No one had ever seen her lose. Some said she was older. Some said she fought dirty. Others claimed she didn't talk, only fought. And she had taken notice of Aaliyah. Word came from a former fighter named Renee, who'd once trained under Nova's old coach. He found Aaliyah at the gym and warned her directly. "You're being hunted," Renee said. "You beat Marcus. That put a target on your back." Aaliyah didn't flinch. "Let them target me. I won't back down." Renee looked her in the eye. "Then you better level up. Because Nova? She doesn't fight like anyone you've met. She'll come for your head." Training for the unknown. With Mr. Holt and her uncle backing her, Aaliyah pushed herself into a whole new level of training. She sparred blindfolded. Fought 2-on-1 drills. Learned how to read body language, anticipate movement, breathe through pain. Her uncle taught her street tactics, wrist breaks, knee feints, joint control. And she trained in silence. Not just her body, but her mind. Focused. Sharp. Calm under fire. "She's not ready," Mr. Holt once said quietly to her uncle. "She's almost there. But Nova's in another league." "She'll be ready," her uncle replied. "She's not fighting just for pride anymore. She's fighting for something bigger." Invitation to the arena. One morning, another envelope arrived. Black. Glossy. Inside was a simple card. "The Phantom Ring. You've been noticed. Your fight is next. Location, Burnside Docks. Midnight. 1 week. Opponent, Nova." Aaliyah folded the card. This was it. The real test. The final countdown. Every day leading up to the fight, Aaliyah focused with surgical intensity. No distractions. No fear. Even Jake, the guy who once looked down on her, now watched her with quiet admiration. "You're the real deal," he told her after school one day. "No one expected you to come this far." "I'm just getting started," she said. That night, her uncle sat down with her, serious. "Win or lose, this fight is going to change everything. You sure you want this life?" Aaliyah didn't hesitate. "This fight doesn't define me. But I'm not walking away from it." Burnside Docks, midnight showdown. The night was cold, fog curling off the river, the air humming with tension. People from across the city gathered in the shadows, some with hoods up, some in leather jackets, others already placing bets. A makeshift arena was set up in a rusted-out shipyard, with bare lights hanging over the ring. Aaliyah arrived in silence, flanked by Mr. Holt and her uncle. She wore all black. Her eyes sharp. Her fists wrapped tight. Nova was already there, tall, broad-shouldered, wearing a dark visor over her eyes. Her movements were eerie, controlled, predatory. She didn't speak. She just stepped into the ring. The crowd went quiet. A masked announcer stepped forward. "Ladies and gentlemen, the undefeated ghost of the ring versus the Storm from Riverside. This is Phantom Round 13. Round 1, Collision." Nova moved like a shadow, testing Aaliyah's defense with rapid jabs. Her hands were quick, unnaturally fast. Aaliyah blocked, dodged, countered. But Nova's style was unlike anything she'd ever faced. It was like fighting a machine. Precise. Merciless. Aaliyah took a shot to the ribs, then one to the jaw. She stumbled, but didn't fall. She adjusted. Recalibrated. Then she struck back. 1-2 combo. Duck. Elbow. Nova reeled for a split second. The crowd gasped. "She's human after all," Aaliyah whispered. Round 2, the storm unleashed. Nova came harder. Faster. No emotion. But Aaliyah was ready now. She found rhythm. Felt the timing. Every attack she blocked, every hit she returned, brought her closer to understanding Nova's pattern. She found the weakness. Nova dropped her left shoulder just before every right cross. So Aaliyah baited it. And when the cross came, she slipped under, twisted, and slammed her fist into Nova's gut. Nova staggered. Then Aaliyah stepped forward, fire in her eyes. This is my ring now. She unleashed a flurry of punches, fluid and fearless. Left. Right. Hook. Elbow. Nova dropped to one knee. The crowd roared. Round 3, the fall of the ghost. Nova rose slowly. For the first time, Aaliyah saw doubt in her body language. They clashed again, but now, Aaliyah was in control. Calm. Deadly. Focused. Final strike. Aaliyah's knee came up, hard and fast, straight into Nova's chest. Nova hit the mat. 10 seconds. She didn't rise. Nova was defeated. Aftermath. The silence that followed was louder than any scream. Then came the applause. The roaring. The eruption. Aaliyah stood over Nova's fallen form, breathing heavy, victorious. From the shadows, a tall figure nodded. An older woman in a long coat, clearly someone of influence. She stepped forward and handed Aaliyah a black and gold business card. "You're ready," she said. "Call me when you want to go pro." After the victory at the Burnside docks, Aaliyah didn't return to normal life. Because there was no normal anymore. The Phantom Ring fight against Nova had changed everything. Her name was whispered in circles she hadn't even known existed before, fighter forums, dark web rings, and even the fringe of international fighting leagues. The black and gold card the woman gave her still sat in her bag. She hadn't called yet. She didn't need to. Word traveled fast and soon enough they called her. The call. It came on a Tuesday morning. Her uncle picked up the phone, spoke for only a minute, then handed it to Aaliyah. His face said it all, serious, impressed, maybe even a little worried. "Hello." A smooth voice answered. Confident. Sharp. "Miss Aaliyah King. My name is Andre Vallin. I represent the Crimson Lotus League, an elite private competition. Invitation only. High stakes. International talent. We watched your fight. We'd like you to represent the US at our next event." Aaliyah blinked. "You want me to go overseas?" "No," Vallin chuckled. "We want you to go beyond." The offer. The Crimson Lotus League was more than a fight. It was a spectacle. Held once every 2 years in a hidden location, this year's would be hosted in Singapore, inside a multi-billion-dollar underground arena called the Petal. 12 fighters from 12 nations. All elite. All lethal. Prize? $1 million purse. But more than money, prestige, contracts, global recognition. You'd be the youngest fighter in the tournament, Vallin explained. But not the first to rise through the underground. Talent like yours? We don't ignore it. Aaliyah didn't hesitate. "I'll do it." The training begins. Preparation became war. Her uncle called in every contact he had, former Olympic boxers, MMA pros, even a Shaolin disciple who had once trained in China. Her days started at dawn, sprints, strength, reflex drills, precision strikes, swimming to build endurance. By night, she trained in silence, focusing on inner calm, mastering her body's rhythm. One of her new coaches, a calm Brazilian jiu-jitsu master named Rosa, said it best. "You're not just preparing to win. You're preparing to survive." Because some of the other fighters? They didn't follow rules. They didn't believe in mercy. Meet the competitors. When Aaliyah finally landed in Singapore, she was escorted to a secret complex beneath the Marina Bay. There, she met the 11 others. There was Tokishi, the Japanese prodigy, trained by the Yakuza before going solo. Anya, the cold, silent Russian girl whose fists moved faster than blinking. Maceo, the flamboyant Italian striker with a golden mouthguard and a sharper tongue. Khan, the quiet Muay Thai master from Thailand, respected by all. Zara, the South African capoeira warrior, graceful and deadly. But one stood out, Cassian Varel, France's undefeated street legend. Brutal, smart, arrogant, and clearly threatened by Aaliyah's presence. "She's just a girl," he muttered in French. "Let her watch from the sidelines." She stared at him and said, "You'll be eating those words before this ends." The petal opens. The arena was unlike anything Aaliyah had ever seen. Underground. Circular. With tiers of seating filled by the world's rich and dangerous. Lights shifted like stage spotlights. The ring could change shape, rising platforms, shifting floors, sudden fog, even walls. It wasn't just a fight, it was theater. The first night, 2 fighters were disqualified. One for using hidden blades. Another for failing a drug test. The stakes were real. The danger was closer than ever. Aaliyah's first fight was against a German kickboxer named Eric. Strong. Tall. Overconfident. She beat him in 2 rounds. Not with brute strength, but with precision, patience, and soul. Whispers of betrayal. Between matches, rumors swirled. Someone had rigged past tournaments. Fighters poisoned. Bribes paid. And someone was targeting Aaliyah. She returned to her quarters one night to find her sparring gloves soaked in oil, slippery and unusable. A warning. Her uncle confronted Valin, furious. Valin raised an eyebrow. "Your girl scares people," he said. "This is the price of being a threat." Aaliyah didn't flinch. She taped her hands bare and trained twice as hard. The clash of queens. By the 5th round, only 4 fighters remained. Aaliyah, Cassian, Anya, Zara. It was time for the semifinals. Aaliyah was matched against Anya, the Russian shadow. The fight was fast. Brutal. Anya struck like ice, cold and calculated. But Aaliyah burned with fire. Her energy was different. Raw. Real. Powered by her past, her scars, her purpose. In the final round, with blood on her lip and fire in her chest, Aaliyah landed the uppercut that dropped Anya cold. The arena roared. Final match, Cassian versus Aaliyah. It had to be him. The French champion. The arrogant prince. The one who called her just a girl. Now, he stood across the ring. Silent. Focused. And Aaliyah? She didn't flinch. No fear. No mercy. Just purpose. The arena pulsed with silence. All eyes on the ring. Aaliyah stood still, arms loose by her sides, eyes locked on her final opponent, Cassian Varel, the golden boy of the Crimson Lotus League. He stood tall and smug, bouncing on his heels, eyes dancing with mockery. "You shouldn't be here," he called out, his French accent thick. "You're a tourist in a world of wolves." Aaliyah didn't reply. She just adjusted her stance. Lowered her chin. Breathed slow. Because this fight wasn't just for the trophy. It was for everything, her name, her legacy, her people, her pain. Round 1, the Fox and the Flame. Cassian struck first. Fast. Crisp jabs, a smooth spinning elbow, a low leg kick. He was clean. Trained. But arrogant. Aaliyah. 3 weeks after her legendary win at the Crimson Lotus League, Aaliyah King's name was everywhere, from fight forums to news outlets, and even trending hashtags on social media. But none of it mattered to her like one simple fact. She had changed the game. Yet with every crown comes a storm. Aaliyah's homecoming. When she flew back to her city, it wasn't as a student. Not anymore. She walked off the plane into a crowd of flashing cameras, chanting fans and news reporters. Aaliyah wore a black hoodie with the words, "I was never just a girl." Her uncle walked beside her, quiet and proud. He'd seen this coming. He knew greatness when he saw it, and now the world did too. But with fame came weight. Interview requests. Endorsement deals. Fight contracts from major organizations, some legit, some not. Aaliyah wasn't looking to join someone else's empire. She was building her own. The Phoenix League. It started in a warehouse in the Bronx. Aaliyah, with her uncle and Rosa the BJJ master, founded the Phoenix League, a fight collective built around skill, honor, and opportunity. No more shady deals. No fixed fights. No gatekeepers. Just raw talent. They trained kids who had been ignored. Girls from tough neighborhoods. Boys fresh out of juvenile detention. Refugees. Outcasts. They gave them gloves, mats, discipline, and purpose. The logo? A black phoenix with gold flames. The motto? We rise. We fight. We burn brighter. Enemies in the shadows. But not everyone was happy. Old fight promoters called her arrogant. Said she was too young to run anything. Too loud. Too black. Too raw. One night, a man named Victor Creel paid her a visit. A former Russian syndicate boss turned fight kingpin. He wore a suit that cost more than the warehouse's monthly rent. "You're disrupting my markets," he said calmly. "You're inspiring people I want kept asleep." Aaliyah just stared. "I'm not here to inspire," she replied. "I'm here to wake them up." Victor smiled. "Then we'll see how long you last." Assassins in the ring. Weeks later, her fighters began to be targeted. Jumped in the street. Sabotaged in matches. Social media slander campaigns. One girl was even offered $100,000 to throw a match and walk away from Phoenix. She refused. She got jumped the next day, broken ribs. Still, she came back. Aaliyah knew, this wasn't just about fists anymore. This was war on legacy. So she issued a challenge. A public post. 1 minute. No filters. To every so-called champion who thinks they run the world, meet me. In the ring. One night. One stage. Let's find out who's really at the top. And they answered. The Arena of Ashes. A new tournament formed from the chaos, Ashes Reborn. Organized by Phoenix League. Broadcast online. Underground to the core. A street-level answer to the corporate fight machine. Fighters came from all over. Maya Hellcat Hernandez from Brazil, a savage knee striker. Dimitri the Wraith Volkov, a ghost of a man with insane takedown speed. Tamara Banshee Young, a New Orleans native who fought like she was chasing demons. And even Cassian Varel, the former champion who now trained under Aaliyah, his ego humbled, but his skill sharper than ever. The final match. Aaliyah vs. Knox Steele, Victor Creel's top assassin fighter. A man with a record of 43 wins, 0 losses and no known emotion. The final showdown begins. The ring was silent. Crowd screaming. Live streams around the world counting down. Knox stood across from Aaliyah, masked, cold, silent. Aaliyah cracked her knuckles. This wasn't for fame. This was personal. She could feel every young fighter watching. Every voice she carried. Every punch she'd ever taken. This wasn't just her fight. It was a movement's. The crowd inside the underground stadium roared like a tidal wave. Smoke curled along the edges of the custom-built octagon lit with flickering gold lights. Cameras floated above the ring, streaming the fight live to over 10 million viewers worldwide. At the center stood Aaliyah. Calm. Grounded. Unshaken. Across from her, Knox Steele. A monster in human form. 6'4", carved like stone, emotionless. His hands were registered weapons in 3 countries. He never spoke. Never blinked. And he never lost. Until tonight. Round 1, Steel meets Soul. The bell rang. Nox charged in like a beast unleashed, fists flying like sledgehammers. Aaliyah dodged the first 3 strikes, barely. The 4th clipped her shoulder, sending shockwaves down her arm. She didn't flinch. She smiled. Because now she knew, he wasn't untouchable. Just another man with bones that could break. She struck low, 2 jabs and a spinning elbow to his ribs. His breath hitched. Just for a moment. But it was enough. The fight behind the fight. In the shadows, Victor Creel watched from a VIP box, surrounded by bodyguards. He sipped dark whiskey and stared down like a god watching a storm he couldn't control. This was supposed to be his win, one of his men said. Creel narrowed his eyes. She's rewriting the rules. And if we don't stop her now, there won't be a seat left for us at the table. He leaned forward, watching the ring. Break her. Round 2, the storm within. Nox adjusted. He stopped chasing and started calculating. He backed Aaliyah against the cage, landed a brutal hook to her jaw, then a spinning heel kick that cracked her ribs. She staggered. Blood on her lip. Vision doubling. The crowd held its breath. But she didn't fall. She dropped to one knee, steadied herself, and whispered her mother's name. Leona. And like a fuse lit in her soul, she rose. She ducked Nox's next punch and unleashed a combo so fast the crowd didn't catch it until the replay. Jab, jab, liver shot, elbow, knee. Nox stumbled. Aaliyah pressed forward. The comeback. By round 3, Aaliyah had found her rhythm. She danced. Floated. Cut angles like a storm cutting through trees. Every move had meaning. Every breath was measured. The fighter who once walked into high school alone, targeted for her skin and strength, now had the world watching, and she wasn't wasting a second. She dodged a high kick and hit Nox with a rising uppercut that lifted him off his feet. He hit the mat. Flat. Unmoving. Silence. Then roar. The ref counted. 10. It was over. The stadium erupted. People cried. Danced. Shouted her name. Aaliyah King. Champion of the Phoenix League. But even as they lifted her on their shoulders, she wasn't celebrating yet. Because Victor Creel didn't leave. He simply smiled and made a call. New war. New enemies. Aaliyah stood in the locker room after the match, unwrapping her hands. Cassian stepped in, tossing her a towel. You think Creel's done? He asked. She shook her head. No. That was just his pawn. Cassian nodded. Then what now? Aaliyah looked into the mirror, bruised, blooded, but undefeated. Now, she said. We take the fight to his door. The sun beat down on cracked earth as Aaliyah stepped out of the SUV. Dust swirled around her boots. Behind her, Rosa adjusted her bag of gear, scanning the silent village ahead. Cassian stepped out next, tying his hair into a knot. Aaliyah stared at the towering steel gate in front of them, the obsidian compound. It wasn't a gym. It wasn't a temple. It was a fortress. The place where Creel trained his deadliest fighters. And she had come to challenge them on their turf. Why here? After Ashes Reborn, Aaliyah became a global name. But her victory over Nox Steel didn't stop the darkness. It stirred it. Creel's reach extended into every continent, every league, every dirty backroom where money silenced morals. He'd placed bounties on Phoenix League fighters. He paid off media outlets to call Aaliyah unstable, too violent, a danger. He even tried to offer her a contract. $10 million. She turned it down. And now? She was going straight to his training grounds, not to join, not to talk. To burn it down from the inside. The Obsidian Trials. To enter the Obsidian compound, she had to pass 3 trials. Each more brutal than the last. Each designed to break spirit before it broke bone. Trial 1, the Chain Pit. 10 fighters. 1 pit. Each with a length of chain attached to their ankle. No tapping out. No running. Only one could leave. Aaliyah dropped into the pit and cracked her neck. The crowd above jeered, betting against her. Cameras streamed it live on the dark web. The whistle blew. She moved like lightning, dodging, weaving, wrapping her chain around an opponent's legs and yanking him down before striking with a brutal elbow. One by one they fell. She left the pit blooded but smiling. Trial 2, the Hall of Silence. A hallway. No lights. No sounds. A test of fear. Rosa and Cassian weren't allowed inside. Just her. She walked the narrow hall, guided by instinct alone. But it wasn't empty. Hidden attackers leapt from walls and shadows, silently. Randomly. Every one of them trained killers. She fought blind. She fought tired. But she never stopped moving. When she reached the other side, they were all down. Trial 3, the mirror match. Her final opponent? A girl named Zahora, same age, same height, similar style. The twist? Zahora had been trained using Aaliyah's own fight footage. Every move, every combo, every feint. She was made to be Aaliyah's mirror, and her executioner. The battle was pure chaos. Every time Aaliyah struck, Zahora struck back. Every dodge was matched. The crowd chanted both names, unsure who to back. But Aaliyah had something no footage could ever teach. Pain. Purpose. Fire. She switched tempo, broke her rhythm, fought like a storm with no pattern. She cracked Zahora's guard wide open. And ended it with a knee that echoed through the compound like a thunderclap. The final door. After the trials, the final door opened. And there, in the heart of the obsidian compound, sat Creel. Calm. Polished. Cold. Aaliyah King, he said. I admire your fire. But you're burning down an empire you don't understand. She stepped closer, blood on her hands, hair tied back, eyes blazing. I don't care what you understand, she said. Your empire runs on fear. Mine runs on truth. He stood slowly. Then let me offer you one final truth. Your mother once trained in my ring. She was one of us. And she died trying to take me down. The words hit her like a shot to the chest. Her mother? Leona King? A fighter? You're lying. Am I? Ask your uncle. He slid a folder across the table. Photos. Fight records. Her mother, young, fierce, wearing black wraps. The phoenix tattoo on her shoulder. Aaliyah's world shifted. Legacy unlocked. She took the folder, tucked it into her jacket, and turned to leave. But before she did, she looked over her shoulder and said, You may have trained her. But you didn't break her. And you sure as hell won't break me. 1 hour later. Back in the SUV, Rosa looked at her. You okay? Aaliyah didn't answer. She was already flipping through the folder. Photos of her mother in the ring. Notes. A list of names. One circled in red. Project Anvil, Phase 0. Cassian leaned in. What's that? Aaliyah closed the folder slowly. A secret they killed her for. Next move, expose the past. This wasn't just about fighting anymore. It was about uncovering a buried war, a shadow program that targeted fighters like her mother. She had to go deeper. To Berlin. To Tokyo. To New York. Wherever her mother's footprints led, she'd follow. Because now, it wasn't just Aaliyah's story. It was a bloodline mission. 3 weeks later. New York City. The city that never sleeps wasn't enough to drown out Aaliyah's thoughts. She stood at the edge of a rooftop, gazing out at the neon-lit skyline, the weight of the folder still heavy in her hands. The photos, the files, the cryptic notes, it all painted a picture. But not one she was ready to fully see. Her mother, Leona King, had been far more than a fighter. She was a part of something bigger. Something far darker. Project Anvil. Aaliyah exhaled, feeling the cold bite of the night air. In the distance, sirens screamed, echoing through the concrete jungle. "You're thinking too much," Cassion's voice broke through her thoughts as he stepped onto the rooftop beside her. "You've already done more than anyone could ask. But this isn't just a fight anymore." She glanced at him, her eyes sharp. "You don't think I know that?" He leaned against the ledge, arms crossed, watching the city lights blink in rhythm. "I've been tracking down leads. The Anvil program, whatever it is, goes deeper than Creel. And we're not the only ones who know about it. There's a whole underground network, ex-fighters, government agencies, arms dealers, everyone's involved." Aaliyah's fists clenched. "So it's not just Creel. He's just a puppet." "Exactly." He turned to face her. "Your mother didn't just fight him. She tried to shut down a corrupt system. And now, you've become the target." Back to the streets. With nothing but the answers buried in her mother's files, Aaliyah knew it was time to move. They hopped on a plane bound for Berlin, the birthplace of Project Anvil. The lead? A name. Dr. Klaus Richter, a former scientist linked to the program. He was said to have disappeared in the 90s, but rumors circulated that he had resurfaced. And if he knew anything about her mother's fight, Aaliyah needed to find him. Berlin, the ghost in the machine. Berlin was colder than New York, its streets older, its shadows longer. Aaliyah and Cassian moved quickly, blending in with the crowds as they navigated the cobbled streets of the city's East District. They had intel on Richter's last known location, a nondescript building near the edge of the city, rumored to be a former government facility. It was supposed to be abandoned. But Aaliyah didn't believe in coincidences. The door to the building was locked, but that didn't stop her. She broke the lock in seconds and slipped inside, the dark, musty air heavy with history and silence. Inside, the building was a maze. Hallways long forgotten, rooms filled with cracked walls and rusted machines. But it was all eerily familiar. The door to the past. At the far end of the facility she found it. A door that looked completely out of place, modern, reinforced and sealed tight with a complex lock system. "I'm guessing this is it," Cassian said, his voice low. Aaliyah nodded. "This is where they hid the truth." They worked quickly, Aaliyah's hands moving with a practiced precision. She'd broken into more than enough places in her life to know how to crack a code. Within moments, the door clicked open. Inside, the room was filled with old computer monitors, filing cabinets and large, dusty crates. But it was the table at the center of the room that caught her attention. On it, a single, pristine file lay. She approached it slowly, her breath catching in her throat as she opened it. Inside were pages and pages of confidential documents, detailing experiments, combat programs, and the names of countless fighters from around the world. Leona King was listed as the most successful subject, with notes suggesting she'd been recruited into the program at the age of 14. Aaliyah's hand trembled as she flipped through the pages. "Your mother was part of a global network of elite fighters," Cassian said quietly, reading over her shoulder. "She was more than just a fighter, she was a weapon. And they knew what she could do," Aaliyah whispered. "They trained her to destroy. They trained us." Unraveling the web. The more Aaliyah read, the darker the truth became. Project Anvil wasn't just about training fighters. It was about creating super soldiers, people like her mother, people like Aaliyah. People who could be controlled, manipulated, and used for covert operations around the world. The files detailed specific operations her mother had been involved in, missions to take down corrupt governments, eliminate global threats, and enforce a covert agenda set by shadow organizations. And then, Aaliyah found the most shocking detail: Leona King's disappearance. The file said that Leona had gone rogue. She had exposed the project, turned against it, and tried to bring the whole operation to light. The last operation she was involved in was the most dangerous, an attempt to sabotage the entire project from within. But they had killed her for it. Aaliyah's eyes burned as the words settled in. Her mother had fought to bring down the very people Aaliyah was now up against. The man who knew too much. Suddenly, a soft voice echoed through the building. You shouldn't have come here. Aaliyah spun around. Standing in the doorway was a tall man, his face partially obscured by the shadows. He was older, his hair graying at the temples, but there was a certain calm in his eyes that reminded her of the hunters she'd faced in the ring. Dr. Klaus Richter, Aaliyah said, her voice cold. He smiled faintly. I knew this day would come. But I didn't think it would be you. The truth in his eyes. Dr. Richter stepped forward, his hands raised in a peaceful gesture. You don't understand the full picture, Aaliyah, he said. Your mother wasn't just a victim. She was a catalyst. She tried to stop something much bigger than you can imagine. Project Anvil, it wasn't just about creating soldiers. It was about controlling the fate of nations. Aaliyah felt her pulse quicken. What do you mean? He hesitated for a moment before continuing. The project's true goal was to control the most powerful people on Earth, to manipulate leaders, topple governments, and install those who were loyal to the agenda. It was a global coup. Aaliyah's mind raced. The stakes were higher than she ever realized. The war she had stepped into wasn't just a fight for freedom, it was a battle for control over the world itself. Berlin, underground safe house. The soft hum of the laptop was the only sound in the room as Aaliyah closed Dr. Klaus Richter's file. The truth was out, but it felt like nothing more than pieces of a shattered mirror. It was all too big to grasp, too overwhelming. Her mother, Leona King, gone rogue to expose Project Anvil, the global covert program designed to control world leaders and eliminate those who stood in the way. Aaliyah closed her eyes. Her mother was a soldier. A weapon. And they killed her for it. Rosa, who had been silent for hours, broke the stillness. What now, Aaliyah? The question lingered in the air, heavy with expectation. The plan was clear, but the path ahead was anything but. Aaliyah glanced at her friend, her face resolute. Now we take this fight global. The betrayal of trust. In the safe house, Cassian sat, his head buried in a set of maps and coordinates that had come from Richter's files. I've been tracking the Anvil agents who are still active. The ones your mother tried to stop, they are still here. Aaliyah's eyes narrowed. Then we find them. We expose them. You don't get it, Aaliyah, Cassian said, frustration in his voice. You think this is just about shutting down a few rogue operatives? No. It's deeper. The people your mother went after? They have connections in every government. Every continent. This isn't a war you can win with your fists alone. It's an underground war. Aaliyah's fists clenched. She had been raised on one principle: fight. Never back down. But this was bigger. She knew it. Still, her fire didn't fade. She had lost too much to let this corrupt system stand. I'll fight however I have to, she said, her voice low but unwavering. The hunt begins. Cassian's maps pinpointed several high-value targets, starting with General Kader Ulfahim, a powerful former military leader who had ties to the Anvil program. Aaliyah knew going after someone like him wouldn't be easy. He'd be heavily guarded, surrounded by a web of corruption. But she wasn't afraid. The plan was to infiltrate his estate in Istanbul, where a high-profile gala was being held. Kader was hosting foreign dignitaries, an event meant to be under the radar, but with more than enough connections to fuel the Anvil program's global reach. The mission was simple: get in. Gather intel. Get out. But Aaliyah knew that in this game, simple plans often went wrong. Istanbul, Gala of Secrets. The night air in Istanbul was thick with heat as Aaliyah slipped into her black dress, tailored to perfection, a disguise that would get her through the heavily guarded gates of General Kader's estate. Rosa, dressed in sleek camouflage, moved like a shadow behind her. They were a team, more than just fighters now. They were operatives. And tonight, they weren't just infiltrating a gala. They were walking into the heart of the lion's den. Cassian worked from the shadows, feeding them real-time intel over their earpieces. General Kader just entered the ballroom, he whispered through the comms. He's moving toward the east side. Watch the cameras, they are on a 30-second cycle. Aaliyah adjusted her dress, smoothing out the wrinkles with an air of calm as she entered the glittering ballroom. The rich, golden chandeliers cast a warm glow over the extravagant guests, oblivious to the danger lurking in their midst. Kader was easy to spot, tall, broad-shouldered, with a sharp military uniform that contrasted with the guests' extravagant gowns and tuxedos. He was surrounded by several men, all armed, their eyes scanning the room like hawks. Aaliyah had one goal: get close to him. She maneuvered through the crowd, her steps graceful, her every movement designed to blend in. But beneath the smooth exterior, she was ready to strike. The intel she needed was on a device he kept hidden on his person, a data drive with information about the Anvil program's operations. She slipped behind Kader, her heart pounding in her chest. A small, sharp blade was hidden in the garter of her dress,